right. I got a special guest here, U.S. Navy veteran, Dondi McKellar. He's got a lot of experience as a New York City street vendor, as well as he runs this great concept called the Public Safe Vending Space in New York. He's a Bunker Labs classmate of mine. I'm super pumped to have him on. How you doing, Dondi?
Hey, how you doing, Steve? And thank you for this opportunity to be on your platform. Looking forward to it, and it's just a great pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, man. I'm used to seeing you. I haven't been on the past few because I've had school and stuff, but I'm used to seeing you on Tuesday mornings at Bunker Labs.
Still there every Tuesday, and I'm grateful for being there as well.
Oh yeah.
It's just a great thing to have veterans getting together and coming together to discuss their entrepreneur ventures with one another. And I found that Bunker really does a great job of letting us network with each other as well. So I'm appreciative of that.
I completely agree. I think that's the one of the best pieces about all these different veteran entrepreneur programs is meeting people like yourself and just sharing different situations we've each been through. Even if it's a different business industry, it still is applicable.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's cool though. All right, so you're Navy vet. I just had on Navy vet. We were just talking. I had on Alton Weeks, owner and founder of Self Fuel Organics. On. So how long were you in the Navy for?
Well, actually, I was in the Navy for 6 years. I went in 1981 and I got out in like 1987, but it was a 4 year active duty contract with 2 years active reserves. So that was from, like I said, 81 to 87 during the Reaganomics years. And it was great. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a gay veteran, and I knew I was gay before I went in. So let's be honest with you. But it was one of the things that I know I would have became a lifer because I really enjoyed the military. I love the structure. I love the regiment and the routine, and I just love the fact that the way to make promotions was one of the things I had no problem with. I kept my nose clean. I kept my gig line straight. It was easy, breezy. It was the fact that I was gay that during that time I was like it presented a different obstacle. So I felt as if my time was winding down. It was time for me to actually, let that be that memory.
Yeah, fair enough. I hear what you mean. I know that's a big piece I talked with a lot of vets too, is the part about the structure of ranking up in the military is so much different when you get out on the civilian side too. It's you don't go into the military and ask to be ranked up. You'll get probably, booted out or something. But in the civilian side, you gotta like gun for yourself and advocate for yourself.
Exactly.
It's a lot different too.
One of the things I learned too was the what's that motto that SHT rolls downhill.
Hmm.
So that's the well in the Navy that was a saying that it rolls downhill. So you motivated yourself to make those promotions. So that's why I say I had no problem because if you are an E2, it's a little different from an E4 on the working parties. So
Yeah, fair enough. And I know we were talking the other day about your Navy experience too. You mentioned maybe now during the different circumstances you'd go back in the Navy with a different light. You think you'd stay in longer at this point, or how you think it's
listen,
changed?
I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. I would have became a lifer. I that was my ambition. Like I said, I loved it. During my time there, when I first went into basic training, it's great. When I went to my A school for disbursement clerk, that's what I did. I was a disbursement clerk, which was financial. We paid the leave and earning statements twice a month and travel pay, whatever if you was traveling from point A to point B, or even if it was just a temporary duty assignment, we made sure that you had the mileage and the per diem and what you needed to get you through that moment. One of the things that I share in common with the cooks on the ship was that I was in the same division as the cooks. We were considered supply. The store merchant, um, the store merchant. We had the ship servicemen, and you also had the laundry guys. So those were all fall up under the division of supply along with disbursement. But I think now the Navy structure has changed. They have merged that disbursement clerk with the yeoman or either the personnelman. So that particular rating that I had then is no longer applicable. So I was told. But it was a wonderful experience for me. When I went to Meridian, Mississippi, I was going for my A school for disbursement clerk. Unfortunately, at that point, I had a military sexual trauma situation to occur, and I was in the hospital for 2 weeks and was unable to finish A school. So I went out to the fleet, Stephen, non-designated, which means I was in what they call deck um, bosun's mate, a bosun's mate, and it was like those are the guys who are very important on the ship. I enjoyed being a bosun's mate for the first year. I learned how to drive the ship. I was actually in the pilot house, and it was the bosun's mate who's actually who has their hands on the helm, actually, maneuvering like a car. So that was really cool. I stayed at Bosa Mates until like I'll say like a year, and then I did the correspondence to go into the role of disbursement clerk, which was great. One of the things though is that because I think I did a correspondence as opposed to finishing the A school, I was supposed to do 2 years on land and 2 years at sea. I wind up doing all 4 years at sea on the same ship, which was great. I think that's why I sort of like I have a great fondness for the military is because I stayed on that same vessel for the entire enlistment and I knew it inside out. Not only was I a disbursement clerk, I was what they call one of the three on-scene leaders who would put out the fires and what have you. So, and it was a funny way of how I became an on-scene leader. It was a kick to see the E1s and E2s. Like I said, crap rolls downhill. So if you're E1 and E2, they'll put you on everything on the fire party. And some of these positions would have required two people to be there. Well, they got a kick just to see me as one person trying to do the kits and stuff. It was okay with me. I actually had the presence of mind to have my booklet signed off by the chief petty officer. A lot of the guys I didn't know then, but I found out later, they thought it was like a brown nosing move to go up to the chief petty officer to get him to sign off for your, the piece of equipment that you have been qualified for, as they say. Well, it paid off for me because when the normal person that was the on-scene leader was leaving, they actually wanted to know who was qualified to take that role, and I presented my workbook, and it was like, "It's you, kid." So that's how I became one of the three unseen leaders aboard the USS Boulder. It was the USS Boulder 1190. I mean LST 1190, a land to sea transport ship, and it was basically a taxi cab for the Marines. So it was a cool gig. I loved it. Again, it was before the don't ask, don't tell policy. It was just you just couldn't be gay. So the structure back then wasn't feasible for me to make a career out of it. But if I had to do it all over again in this environment, I would. Yes, I would definitely. It would be hard pressed to get me out of the military.
That's good. It's good you still got a good mature look on that, you know. The LST is the acronym, right? That's what you said,
Yeah,
LSTs. So I
yeah.
think those used to be next to us because we used to pull into the Navy base in San Diego a lot.
Uh
I'm
huh.
pretty sure those were always next to us. Those are what, like 500 or 600 feet or something like that. Is that right?
Yes, exactly,
Okay, I know what you're
exactly.
talking about.
And we were stationed in Little Creek, Virginia, up until when I went in '81, and in '82 we changed home ports from Little Creek, Virginia, to Brooklyn, to Fort Bennisfield. There was a Coast Guard ship that was stationed at Fort Bennisfield at that time, and we were the only two ships at that pier in Fort Bennisfield in Brooklyn. So that was actually the same ship after I finished the 4 years of active duty. This is no joke. I did 2 years reserve duty on the same ship. So, like I said, I always, that's the only vessel, the only duty station I know.
That's pretty neat. It worked out that way. I know even in boot camp for us in the Coast Guard, a lot of us were talking about like, oh man, we hope we don't get a ship. It's going to be awful. But then you get to the ship. I was on the ship the whole time too, and it's so much better because you get different port calls. You bond better. You like get to know the ins and out of the ship. You're out on the water. It's a much cooler experience, I think. Given the stations are neat too, but I loved my time on a ship as well.
No, it was really great. And the thing about it is, I'm gonna be honest with you, I could not swim.
Hmm.
I did not learn to swim until I turned 50.
Oh
So
wow,
I
that's sick.
was going to let you know um, I was petrified of water, but I was more petrified of growing up in a small southern town.
Hmm.
So I took the chances and I gambled and went to see the recruiter. And that's how I became into the military. I was like, I love my hometown. I'm from the Sand Hills of North Carolina. My father helped build Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Oh
And
cool.
I have a military family. I have like two of my brothers who served in Vietnam. And I'm the youngest of nine brothers. So I'm like, yeah, it was time to go. I had to get out.
Oh man, fair enough, fair enough. That's cool though. That's a cool story. All right, cool. How's the food on the Navy ship?
Well, prayerfully, I enjoyed the food. I like when we had the surf and turf day. I really enjoyed that. But I was being a supply. I made friends with the cooks, and the cooks made friends
Smart
with the
man.
guys who was paying you. You know, they made friends with the disbursement clerk. So it was like it was both hands taking care of each other. So
Mhm.
I never had problems with the food issue. It was a great. Again, it's going to be hard pressed to get me to say anything negative, about the military. I just wish it was a different type of military back then, like it was now. That's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the food, I had no problems with it. I love. What got me was when we would be at sea at night. If you would go on the deck and just look up, it was like being in a planetarium. To look up and see the sky as you were at sea underway, it was cool. And sometimes I think the longest we was deployed was for 6 months. So that was really crazy not seeing land for that period of time, and just remembering how to walk on land once you get back to it. But it was really a great experience, and I would advise, and I did advise a lot of my relatives at the time that was young that get that experience, go into the military. It was something that it helped shape you and give you some character. I just felt like, in a way, it was an opportunity, and it still is an opportunity for so many people.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's funny you mentioned about having land sickness too, because that's 100% a thing that I didn't realize until my first, few weeks out at sea or whatever it was. And I get on and you feel like you're drunk just walking on the land. It's bizarre.
Yes.
That's pretty funny. That's cool though. So I know you got like years of experience being a NYC street vendor and working in this space. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, like I shared with you earlier, I'm a military sexual trauma vet, and I was actually going to the Harlem Vet Center seeing my therapist at the time, and it was just one of those days she asked the right question, like, "How was your day?" And it was crappy, and I was letting her know that, and it was like a financial issue that was making it so crappy. And she asked me, "Have you ever thought about becoming a street vendor?" And I was like, "No, veterans can become street vendors." And she shared with me that ever since 1894, veterans have been able to vend throughout New York State. And at the time, she asked me, was it okay if she hooked me up with another one of her patients? And that other patient was also LGBTQIA plus. Back then, we just called each other family. So it was like it was a 1, 2, 3. We hooked up, and it was a different way of receiving the licenses then. And one of the things, example, is that you need a certificate of authority, and at that time in 2004, you would go to Brooklyn to 55 Hanson Street to apply in person for it. But now it's online. And it was one of the things that led me to where I'm at now for is sharing how to become a street vendor, the items you need to gather, some of the knowledge you need to know for is the rules or the role of engagement about being in the public space in the streets, knowing the privileges that New York State has given us as veterans since 1894 to vend in the streets. And it was I had the opportunity to give some training classes at LaGuardia Community College through this platform, as well as at the Hollow Vet Center, where I was actually shown how to become a street vendor by the therapist who I was sharing with you before, my military sexual trauma therapist. I was giving these courses also online during the pandemic. So it's one of the things that I really have a passion to see that not only do you have a chance to get a small business through New York State as a veteran, you have a chance to go out into the street and thrive in $1 billion industry. And I share with people a basic, what you would say, business plan that I used when I was selling food. I had my own food cart, and it was called the basket, Stephen. So you know, the New York City would give the veterans a permit to sell food that would be near the park systems. Whenever you would see like the oak leaf, that's any space that around the parks or the museums or what have you, veterans can vend there 30 feet from the entrance. So the permit allowed me to be within that structure. And so I figured, since we have a permit that's going to put me near the park, what can we sell? And I strategized with a couple of other friends of mine at that time, and we came up with the basket. So we made our cart into a picnic basket. So that was one of the things that we would do on the spot. We would prepare a picnic basket so you can go out and enjoy a picnic in Central Park. We picked out a location on, I think it was 77 and Fifth Avenue, and I was running the basket for several years there. It was giving me a chance also to compete in competitions. I was in the Vending Awards that was on Governor Island. Did not win, but it was fun. you know, it was a chance to go to the Brooklyn Navy Yard, um, to be one of three different food trucks of food options that we would give to the employees at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and we just registered to be one of the carts that would come over during, the lunch period and to serve those that was there. So it was an opportunity to then to go out and engage in different platforms as a street vendor, competitions and what have you. And I just found that the more knowledge that veterans would have about this process, it would make, I think it would make the experience better for the people who are currently out there as well. Because it's one of the things to know how to go out there and set up your cart, but also, and make money. But also, if you experience some difficulties, to know how to handle that and not let that throw you off your game. You still know how to address it and go and make money. And that was one of the challenges I found at first that I overcame. That was very simple. It was, I used to sell these things in general merchandise. I sell food in general merchandise. So I used to sell the bubble blowers. And this was my go-to forever item for me to sell, because it was like, even if I had to slow down and I didn't make money, I like bubbles. So bubbles was something that really attracted me ever since I was a kid, and it was like an opportunity to sell something that I actually enjoy selling. And I found myself making videos. There's a few videos that I have of me on a day of work, just blowing bubbles at work, and it was a very cool experience. And now I'm sort of sidelined from the everyday vending because I do have a underlying condition, and so I'm not out every day selling these puppies that I love. But I am sitting back and trying to see how would this space of vending be a little safer and can be better for veterans who's going to be coming behind me.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a great mission of the organization as well. Because I mean, I feel like New York City is probably one of the best places to run a small business, but it's also one of the more complicated cities for everything. For instance, even just like daily living in New York City, I always get the question from people who live out of town or family or whatever, or aren't familiar with New York City. They're like, "How do you get your groceries?" That's probably the first question I get, and I'm like, "What do you mean? I just walk around the corner and grab them." They're like, "You mean you don't go drive somewhere and put it in your trunk and X Y Z?" That's just a very small, minute example of how living in New York City can, I guess, create some complications. So it's good that they have people looking out for them in the vending space too. So I guess with that, if I'm trying to say Hellman's Kitchen, start a food, become a food vendor in New York City, what is the process like for that anyways? What would the some of the steps be, or what should I think through for anybody listening thinking about doing the same thing?
Well, the first thing you're going to need to do is apply online for a certificate of authority. That would be a process that you would need to do online and give it 30 days before you receive that. Once you receive that, you can go to the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection along with the following items: your DD 214, an original Social Security card. You will need to also take with you a means of, well, the permits, and excuse me, the licenses are free, but you would need to also take with you your debit card just in case if you have another expense that may come up, and for a fee of $10, I think, but that's only on the renewal. So let me just back up. Just take your DD 214, your original your original Social Security card, the certificate of authority when it comes in the mail to you, and then you will be able to go in and start the process. And at that point, if you are going to apply for, they will ask you if you're going to apply for food or for general merchandise. Because if you are taking a food license as well, you will take a course. It's a 2-day food preparation course that would give you a certificate that you know how to handle food for the licenses. And they would issue those licenses to you. One of the things that you would need to know is if you are looking to apply for what we have currently is a V permit, which is a food permit which allows veterans, disabled veterans such as myself, to work 30 feet around the entrances of a park. You would need to have what they call a hawker's license to apply for that. The hawker's license can be captured. You can get that at your borough hall. You can take your ID form with you in a means of showing where you live, and you can present that and let them know that you are a veteran and you would like to apply for a hawker's license. Those licenses are free of charge. You would need to have with you 2 passport photos, because one of those photos will go on the license itself and one will go in the book saying that you actually received the license. You would need to actually have that license when you get ready to apply for a food permit. Now, just so you know, there's a new law, Local Law 18, that just was passed in 2021, which is going to allow for 4,000 new food permits to actually enter into our street system here in New York City. So from that, they have 45 permits each year that will be broken down to disabled veterans, veterans and disabled people. And that's another reason why I'm glad to be on your platform today, is because, these are like small businesses that you can have, that you can go out, such as I have done, to get certified. You can get your DUNS number so you can apply for city contracts. This is a vehicle to take you in that direction. This is one of the things that a lot of veterans may not know, that it's a way to get your foot in the door if you maybe one day want to have your own storefront, your own mom and pop storefront situation. A lot of street vendors progress into that situation from first starting in the streets as a regular vendor, whether you're selling food or general merchandise. And you can do both. That's another thing. You can sell food and general merchandise. It could be the bubble blowers such as I sell, or it could be jewelry, it could be shirts, it can be scarves. My suggestion is for you to get your license and find your niche. Find what you feel comfortable selling, and know the rules. Know where you can set up your table. You do not set up your table in a bus stop. Okay, we are not going to do that, because that's an automatic fine. So we are trying to make sure we go out and instruct people to follow the rules, find a location that is suitable for you and where you can make your money. Do not fall in love with a location, I would tell people, because you never know. A store owner may want you out of that location and they may get a permit to place a planter there. So now you have to comply with the rules of the street and not place your table there. So I always say, if you have a business plan, you will know exactly how many hot dogs you have to sell that day, or how many bubble blowers you need to sell, and you just find the location that actually is conducive to that. And that's my my best advice, and to reach out and to know that Article 35A is one of the laws that allow veterans to sell. Yeah, it's one of the things that I know that the city council is really listening to the veteran street vendors in this aspect of creating this web page, which is so needed. Just like you asked, how would you go about becoming a street vendor if it's been around for so long? Why isn't there already a web page? So it was one of the things that, like we said, we see that's needed, and again, it's great to have platforms to actually share that information.
No, that's great. I mean, I really appreciate what you're doing. It's great advice you're sharing with all everybody listening too. I mean, that's the greatest part about being in this veteran community, right? We're all looking out for each other. We're coming up with different ways to figure out how we would have liked it to happen back XYZ, right? Like, for instance, I worked in higher education specifically with student veterans for the past few years over at Fordham University in New York City.
Uh-huh.
I came in thinking, like, oh man, when I got out of the military, like, I didn't really have a great advisor or mentor getting into college at first. So it was very confusing for me. So, how could I try to improve that? And I worked my hardest to try to do so the past few years, right? And we got to a great spot at Fordham, and they're doing great things still. And just another example of why this veteran space is so great, right?
It is. It's something about it. It makes you want to give back. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think until 2012, that's when they lifted Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And now you can be openly gay in the space, in the military. So I'm like, that's going to produce openly gay veterans as well. And we need to have a spot if you want to come out in the street and sell whatever you choose to sell and bring of yourself to sell in the streets. It's like we should make sure that that's a baton that we can pass. And that's one of my motivators. It's like we want to make sure we pass this baton, on to the next group of veterans that's coming out. So it's important to do that.
100% agree. Well, Dondi, it's been a pleasure. Anything you didn't touch on that you want to share?
Well, I just want to just share with you a couple of things about public safe vending
Mm-hmm.
space. This is one of the concepts since I've been out in the streets. I actually received an award for city and state in regards to this initiative. And what it is, it's a vending plaza um, connected to a commissary. A plaza is an area that I'm trying to make this into where we can use historical, community, cultural sites that that you walk by every day. That we can actually use these sites to become a plaza where vending can take place, and assign this to a commissary. A commissary is where every food cart needs to go at night. Just so you know, by law, you shouldn't see any food carts on the streets of New York 24 hours a day. That should not be the case. They should go in there to be cleaned and brought back out to the street because you are dealing with the public. So the commissary is where you would take the cart in, but the commissary and the plaza in my concept are both sensitive locations, which means immigration, custom, and enforcement could not go there, and firearms are not allowed there. I believe as veterans, we serve the country of immigrants, and I have never stopped doing that. I think that this is something that we all have origins from somewhere. If you check our ancestry, somewhere that's not from America. So I feel that this will allow those new Americans who may be undocumented a place to actually work and thrive without feeling like they have to be concerned about family breakups or anything of that nature. And I'm 61, so I want to know I can go to a market or to a farmer's market without being shot. So that's another, important part. And I just want to just also use this space to say that I suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, along with lung cancer. I'm one of the few veterans that I know that the VA has written a letter so I can get medical cannabis. And that was one of the things that I'm just so, Stephen, if it wasn't for that, I don't think we would be having this podcast today. I found myself in a situation where the chemo would not work in my case, and a surgery that would be required to do what they call a coronic resectioning. The odds of that is like 10 people had this surgery, all these three, was successful. The other seven didn't quite make it. So that was off the table. And it was Dr. Sanjay Gupta. He was for medical cannabis. I mean, he was against medical cannabis, and then he changed his opinion to be for it. And something about that is sort of like piqued my curiosity to find out that cannabis would help to keep the spread of tumors from occurring. And I was like, this is great because I'm in a situation where this is a rare tumor, which basically means the VA physicians or physicians in general do not know a lot about this type of tumor. So that's what the rare comes in. So I was fortunate that the VA hospital wrote a letter for me to take to Noon, I think it's NUGG Nudge MD. I took my military letter there. I met with another doctor who actually gave me the requirements needed to go to the state to acquire my cannabis card. And it's wonderful. It was an experience where I was able to go to dispensaries and actually find several products that I liked. It's not all flour. You can take those things. It looks like fish oil pills. You can get that type of way to consume it, or you can have something you can put in your tea, your smoothies. It's gummies. It's edibles. It's a variety of way to consume it. You do not have to walk around and blow smoke in people's face. But if you are lighting them up and puffing them, great. That's you. Okay. But I just want you to know that that's something that veterans, I know, since it's not recognized federal at this time, it doesn't change the fact that this plant has healing properties. It's consisting of THC and CBD, and you can get some of the medical cannabis that has a mixture of both. THC and CBD, or you can just get the CBD. It's something that you can work through, but the benefits. I was diagnosed in 2015, and I'm still here, and I'm happy, and I'm like, I get able to share this information. I wish. One last thing. If you are taking medical cannabis and you do have a card, you can get up and grow up to 6 medical cannabis plants in your home. Just so you know that, so you can become a farmer. Okay, I like to think this organization called Black Farmers United of New York State. I'm a member there, and I'm a part of the Cannabis and Hip Committee. And they, like you, allow me to have a platform that I can share with other veterans. Because currently we do not have that platform to speak of cannabis, and it's such a healing plant. I just wish I know the laws recently have been shot down through the Senate for the research for what's coming down at the federal level. But in New York State, it is legal. And I think more should be done to help veterans in the states that's legal. And I want to do my part because if it wasn't for the grace of God, where would I be? And I want to just share that with you. So thank you for this opportunity, Stephen.
Yeah, oh, that's incredible information. And I know I was at a conference not too long ago. Some guy run a company that focuses on, I think it was LSD and psychedelic mushrooms, helping
Okay.
vets with PSD. It was pretty interesting. I guess that's a growing thing too, where they're microdosing, I guess, psychedelic mushrooms with vets and having good success. So it's
It really,
interesting, right?
it really is interesting, and it really helps with post traumatic stress disorder. I have chronic post traumatic stress disorder, and it keeps me level. It keeps me from having to be triggered by anything. I can watch a purge movies and go to sleep.
That's great.
So it's really great. And I can't speak uh, no more highly of this plant healing properties. I think we as veterans have a chance doing this rollout, not only to heal, but to thrive within the cannabis industry that's coming out as well. So maybe one day I'll come back and we can talk about cannabis.
Absolutely. Love to have you back. Awesome, Dondi. Well, it's been a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Stephen.
And how can people reach you, or what website should they go to find out more
Sure.
info?
Let me just give you, I hope you don't mind my email address. Is that okay?
Perfect.
It's dondimckellar@gmail.com. DONDIMCKELLAR@gmail.com. And if you go on YouTube, you can find like a few videos. It's under Dondi Bubbles NYC, and you'll see a couple of videos of me just blowing bubbles in the streets of Soho. I love that.
Nice. That's awesome. All right, Dondi, it was a pleasure. And, I'll see you at Bunker Labs next week.
You got it. All right, stay safe.
All right.